Delain's new album, Moonbathers, comes out next month. How do you think this album is different from The Human Contradiction?
That's a good question. I think there's more contrast in it in the songs. I talk about contrast a lot throughout the albums, but in this time I mean that there are a lot of different songs. We got some songs which are really pretty hard music, like really a lot of riffing going on. But this time we also have songs which have less riffing and is more about it's more flowing like a ballad or just a more kind of at ease song. Um, so I think there's more contrast. We've got some songs where I think it's the toughest stuff we made, and the other way around. So that's different.
All right. We have Alyssa Whiteglass from Arch Enemy doing guest vocals on one of the tracks. Could you tell us how that recording process was?
Yeah, of course, you know Alyssa already because we worked with her at a previous record. And besides that, you meet each other a lot at festivals, at shows, at tours. When we were touring the States with Nightwish, she visited us in Montreal, where she's from, and she even joined us on stage. So, the contact with Alyssa is just really good, and she's a really cool person. And we had a song which was asking for growls, and we love her growls. They're really brutal, and so it was really easy to connect to. Oh, hey, let's ask Alyssa, and she was very open to work with us. So we sent her the material, and she recorded it in the studio at their own place near her where she lives, and she just sent it back, and we used it immediately in our pre-production. And it's always really surprising to work with guest musicians and what comes out, and we really loved what came out here.
Do you think that symphonic metal lends itself to have more guest musicians than other types of metal?
No, I don't think that matters so much. Um, you can always ask guests to play to do riffing, or to even if it's like really tough metal, even if it's metalcore, whatever. You can always ask another singer or another front person to join you. I don't think that doesn't make much difference. Although in our kind of music, it has a lot of open spaces, so you can identify guests more easily, and therefore they can also add to diversity in your music. So in that way, it kind of does. But in general, I think you can have guests in any sort of music. It doesn't really matter.
On the album, you also covered Queen's Scandal, which I think suits your style very well. Why did you choose something off of The Miracle instead of songs that are more like traditionally known from Queen as being more symphonic or operatic?
It's as you said. I think this song has kind of a Delain vibe to it. It's very compatible. It's a song I always loved, and besides that, covering Queen, I think, is really dangerous, especially the well-known songs. So even if you dare to cover a Queen song, then I think it should be one of the lesser known songs. And I think Scandal is a lesser known song, but the most important reason is that I just love the song, and as I said, I think it fits the Delain vibe so well. So this combination actually made us do it, and actually it was meant as a bonus track song, but we liked it that much that we thought, you know what, no, we're gonna put it on the album, and hope that people like it. So that's all we did.
What made you decide to play the keyboards?
That's a good one. Actually, I started playing keyboard when I was 7 or 8, something like that, and then I switched to piano when I was 11. And piano or keys, to me it's all the same. You use a keyboard to make your music, and that's how I see it. I don't really perceive myself as a keyboard guy. I perceive myself as a musician who tries to make music, and one of the tools I'm using are keyboards. It's a very easy instrument to play. Somehow guitars never suited me. I can play a little bit guitars nowadays for some riffing, but it's really bad. It's good enough for me to write, but it's not good enough to play it. And yeah, somehow with keys, it comes to me far easier, and it also gives me more of a possibility to write in a far wider spectrum than only with guitars. You can use keys to use samples, to even use drums, and of course you got kind of a synthesizer for guitar as well, but it's more limited, and so it's a very handy tool, to say it like that.
So, are you self-taught on the keyboards, or did you take lessons, or was there a combination of both?
It's a combination of both. I took lessons. My parents really stimulated us to play an instrument. But of course, when you play and sit behind the piano, you just start to experiment with things. If you hear a nice song on the radio, you wanted to play it, and then you discover kind of things, kind of structures, patterns, etc. And so it's a combination of both.
And about your brother, you formed Within Temptation with him, but then you left because you had an illness, and a few years later you started Delain. How was the transition between both bands?
It went very organic, actually, because I didn't had big main plan behind Delain. I just wanted to make an album. I wasn't up and running yet, and I just wanted to make some music, and the whole Delain thing went out of control. So when I left Within Temptation, there was no argument, there was no fight, there was just me and my physical limitations, which made me leave Delain, Within Temptation. And some people also ask, don't you, are you not feeling sad at leaving Within Temptation and it had so much success? And I always say no, because first of all I had no choice, because I was just physically not able, and second of all, their success, I always felt a little bit my success as well, and it's family, of course. Sharon is my sister-in-law. So I was always still, I followed what happened, and I was kept up to date, and I just was still active in that genre of music myself. So it was a very organic process, actually. But the good thing of Delain is that it's it's my thing, and I can do whatever I want. Of course, now with Charlotte and with the band, but and with Within Temptation, that was more Sharon's and Robert's thing, and so I do felt much more free, and I think I developed more in my time after Within Temptation. I was also still very young when I left Within Temptation. I was 21. When I started, I was 16, I think, something like that, 17. So I see there's two separate lives, music lives, so to say. But I think back with a smile to both.
Did you think that your songwriting process or how you arrange the songs changed between the two bands?
No, not really. Of course, you develop, but you do that anyway. But I'm just me, and I did limited songwriting Within Temptation. I co-wrote the song "Restless," for example, and this is something I would do the same in Delain. So it's just part of me in there, and that's now in Delain. So I have to say no.
How close are you to the other symphonic metal bands like Within Temptation, Nightwish, etc.? I know you have toured together in the past. Some of you have performed together on stage.
hmm I think I'm more close to Nightwish than I'm Within Temptation. I think Within Temptation is a little bit too poppy for me, and Nightwish is more in my vein. It's more focused to the metal genre, more to that niche, just like I am, and yeah, I got a similar taste for music with two Omas, and I have that less with Robert, with my brother. But nonetheless, of course, there are similarities with all bands. For example, we write our songs have a pop structure: first chorus, middle part, hook riff, and there are a lot of bands in our genre who have kind of a composition kind of structure. Like Epica, for example, and that's different. I have not really a musical connection with a band like Epica. It's not my cup of tea, but yeah, I do have it with Temptation in terms of the structure and in terms of the heaviness and the style with Nightwish. So yeah, there are some similarities there, of course.
Do you think that symphonic metal tends to appeal more to women than other genres of metal?
Yes, I do think so. I think you can also see it when you look into your crowd, the demographics of a crowd when you play a headline show or a show with Nightwish or with Temptation. There are more girls there than if you, for example, go to a festival, like a metal festival, like Hellfest or Download or Grass Pop or whatever. I think that there are more men there. I do think that the harder the metal is, the less girls there are.
Do you think that the appeal to women has to do with the actual musical elements, like you said, that you guys use more of a pop structure, you have clean vocals, for example?
I find it difficult to say. I do have to say that I think it has absolutely nothing to do with that there's a girl singing.
Right.
I don't like the term female fronted because there are male fronted bands too. What does that have to do with the style? You know, take a band like Camelot, for example. There's no girl frontman. Of course, you got Alyssa singing and growling in there, but the front guy. Uh, that's a guy, and I think the music can be very well fitted in the style of some of the other bands where a girl is singing. So that has nothing to do with it. I do think indeed that the melodic aspect of it, that this appeals to girls more, and the riffing, of course. Yeah, it's always dangerous to generalize things, but yeah, I do think the harder the music is, the more metal it is, the more riffing it is, the less girls like it. In general, exceptions are always there, of course. But yeah, I think the proof is when you look at the crowd and how it's divided between guys and girls.
When Within Temptation and Delain were starting out, did you encounter elitism from fans of the heavier types of metal?
Of course, it's not true metal. Oh, they're commercial. And let me say this immediately. The whole commercial argument is total bullshit. Because if I want to go commercial, you cannot use any guitars whatsoever, and I'm in totally the wrong genre. So I just make what I love to make. Even more, you can say the opposite thing, because people sometimes said like, "Oh, but that's such safe choices." No, it's not, because of that reason. Couldn't you do something more surprising? No, I couldn't, because this is what I like, and I only make what I like, and that happens to be this. And if I want to make money and if I want to be commercial, first of all, I wouldn't be into music in general, because the chance that you can earn money with music is really, really small. And second of all, if I even want to do that, then please don't choose metal, because you will have very limited radio airplay, and metal is not in fashion. But I happen to love metal, and I happen to love hard guitars, and I do listen to poppy bands and to artists like David Guetta, but I also still listen to Pantera or In Flames or the more tough stuff, you know. So yeah, it's So I really, really dislike, I actually despise the whole elitism, you know. Also, when bands become successful, then it's suddenly not cool anymore because your band, you have to share with other people. It's not your band in the first place. Of course, you know, it's different that fans. I see the fans as my boss. They're my employer because they spend money on me, and I can do this because of them, and I'm really grateful for this. But it doesn't mean that they have to say in what kind of music I will make or not, because that's something which comes from your heart. Because music is emotion, and I make what I want to make. So yeah.
How did the business change from the time you started in music till now? How?
Ooh, a lot. A lot of changes have happened. I think I'm in a fortunate position to have witnessed kind of music history. Because when I started, I still remember a label guy saying to a band like Theater of Tragedy in the end of the 90s, yeah, they sell 120,000 units in Germany. And right now, selling 120,000 units in general worldwide is a lot.
Yeah.
And back then it wasn't. The whole album market collapsed, and I think we're in a fortunate position that in metal it actually didn't collapse entirely. You can still sell albums. It's a very conservative, old-fashioned market, and in a good way, that you still sell things. People are really loyal, and I think us artists in the genre are really spoiled with that, and we should realize that we can do this. Again, we can do this because of them. And right now, of course, you have all the downloads. You have Spotify. That changed. Labels collapsed. Um, you have to do more, far more, with far less means. It means you have to be more creative. And I think that also is part of determining the success of a band far more now than it was back then. Of course, back then you have to be creative on a marketing aspect, but right now you have to be far more creative because you only have you have far more limited financial means to do something. On the other hand, you have far more possibilities to do stuff yourself. For crowdfunding, online, you have a more direct contact with your fans. So it's just so different nowadays. And I wouldn't say it's worse. It's just different. There are things which are worse and there are things which are better. You just have to deal with it and accept it.
Do you think that part of that new environment gives bands more financial and creative freedom because a lot of them just aren't signed to labels anymore?
No, you have less financial freedom because there's just less money into it. Um, but you have more creative freedom because indeed you can do things more. You have to do more things yourself, but you also can do more things yourself, and you're less dependent of old-fashioned structures like labels and their whole infrastructure. We are still, of course, working with labels because they do have a very good network, you know, and a very good infrastructure. But you can also use crowdfunding, and you can connect with fans directly. You don't need mediums like magazines anymore. Of course, it's a nice tool to reach people, but there are far more possibilities to reach your fans, and vice versa as well, by the way.
What are some of the most memorable cities that you've played, and do you think that Delain is more popular in some regions than others?
Um, well, let's start with the second question first. An
Okay.
absolute yes. There are, of course, differences in regions where you are more popular and less popular. I think one of the most important key countries for us is the UK. We do really well there, and yeah, I love the UK, and not only because we have success there, but also because of the people. They they are really down to earth. They like to mock themselves, and I like to mock myself as well. Don't take yourself too serious all the time. I like that kind of attitude very much, and So that's a country where we do really well. For example, Paris is always magical somehow for us. It's always special. Um, America is also I love to play the States and Canada. It's when we have a US tour, I always look forward to it so much, and that works really well. We still have to start a little bit in Japan. There's not much going on there right now, so we're actually thinking of that. Um, there are absolutely regions where you do more than others. And then your first question, yes. For example, the Greek Theater in LA. Actually, the show itself I didn't really like because we were very limited with how loud our sound was allowed to be. I never played that soft. I didn't really like that, but I really loved the vibe. It was in the open. It was kind of an amphitheater. That's why it's called the Greek Theater. Another example is Wembley. Wembley was really special. The first time we played Wacken open air, that was really special. But that's not really a city, of course. But I would say London, LA, and and the cruise. Of course, that's not a city either, but the 70,000 tons of metal cruise, when you're just go like with a boat, go to the Caribbean and play in this tropical environment in the midst of winter in Europe. That's very special. So there are some very special places we've been.
Do you plan to tour North America in the near future?
Absolutely, yeah. We're actually setting up a tour for next year around April, May. We're not done yet, but we're exploring it, and we're really aiming to do a headline tour. It's going to be our first headline tour, but we already did support tours there 4 times, and people are asking for longer sets, and I think it's about time. But unless something really cool, like joining another band, pops up, but I think it's good to do a headline tour. So, in short, yes.
This year will be Delain's 10th anniversary of your first album. What are your plans to celebrate the anniversary?
We have a special show planned in Amsterdam. I think it's December 10, at like a very legendary venue in Amsterdam called Paradiso. All big artists played there, from Kurt Cobain to The Police or whatever. All big artists. There's kind of magic there, and I just saw the latest ticket sales, and I think we're gonna sell it out for sure. By far for before the 10th. So that's going to be fantastic. And we're celebrating the 10 year, and we're asking guests who were present at our albums, also previous band members, and we want to make it the most special show up to date in our career. And there's something else which we're planning, but we want to keep this a surprise still, which has to do with the 10th anniversary, and we will announce something about that really shortly. But for now, we want to keep it a surprise.
All right. Is there anything else you'd want to get out there?
What I always say, and I really mean it, that I'm so grateful for all the people who listen to our music, because I realize so well that the only reason this is my job is because of them, and I love this job, and I'm able to make people happy with our music, which is an honor, and to travel the world, and I think for me it's the best job in the world. So I'm very grateful for the support people give us, and I want to thank them for that.